Hey there, everybody. It's Eternal Snowman here with another video. This time, I'm going to be going through TLT Round 1 playoffs and Round 2 playoff predictions. So, for Round 1, if you didn't see, I have my video uploaded about Round 1. Actually, it's in two parts, partially because of my. That was a mistake during recording. So, you actually see at the end of part 1 and beginning of part 2, I kind of was fumbling a little bit. Basically, some IRL stuff was happening. So, I needed to I cut the recording a little bit, and then I couldn't figure out a way to combine the videos in a clean manner, so that's why you'll see it like that. But let's get right into the recap part of round one. So in round one, I think a lot of the predictions actually got basically on point, myself and a lot of other people. With I missed one notable matchup, which was Saba versus Blinkboy. I think actually I got every other matchup correct. Um, However, that was more so a testament for me to the fact that a lot of these matchups were kind of predictable in the sense that they weren't very close, and the ones that were close actually did show in the matchup. For example, Decim versus or Decim, which actually in the thread he posted that the name is Decim like December instead of Decim. Anyway, Decim versus HYS was actually very close in a 5-game set. Which I personally thought was pretty telling to how good my evaluation of both players was. So feel good, pretty good about that one. Blinkboy versus Saba was actually not as close as perhaps I had originally thought it would be. Saba taking in 4 games, and it was relatively convincing as well. And then myself versus MJ was also 4 games. However, I got relatively lucky in UU. It was kind of like a coin flip game, and so it could have gone to 5 games easily if some different RNG things happened. So of course, that kind of stuff is always definitely a little bit exciting. So let's start here with Kather versus Roxy. This is a 3-game set. Kather got pretty lucky in one of those 3 games. I believe it was UU or OU. I don't remember quite which tier, but I do remember one of them being relatively lucky. But taking in 3 games, all you can really ask for kind of expected a player who's expected to go really far. Like I said earlier, Saba over Blinkboy in 4. Cheese took it over Fat Fighter 2 in 4 games as well. Pretty clean in those ones. Luthier over Ronman in 3. Pretty clean set there as well. GXC also cleaning it up. Decim versus HYS. As I said earlier, one of the few 5-game sets of this round, and Decim took it, but I think this is more of a reflection of HYS's abilities to actually play well a lot in some of these lower tiers and actually challenge. And his overall playing ability definitely showed in this set. Although he wasn't able to move on, still pretty impressive to be able to take Decim, who is one of the people that a lot of players were hyping up before this tournament to really be somebody who is a tournament favorite. Take Decim to 5 games. I think this is kind of a bad omen though for Decim if in the future against players like GXC or Luthier, who Decim will actually be facing relatively soon in the bracket. Actually, next round, the winner of Luthier versus GXC will actually play the winner of Decim Raj.shoot. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, we'll get into that more in the prediction part. Raj took a pretty convincing set versus Hellray, which is good omens. I think Hellray did have good team selection, but got overall I think overall throughout this tournament in TLT, he's had a lot better team selection than he did in the past, in my opinion. Although still being more adventurous and stuff, but that's completely fine. I think some of the issues came more so in Raj was able to outplay him and get some pretty good matchups in a lot of those games. So nice job there. Team Charm took it very cleanly in 3 games, which is exactly what I wanted to see over El Cap, who, although he didn't bring HO every single game, his teams were relatively predictable, and I really like seeing some of these newer players be able to capitalize on these weaknesses pretty well. So very nice to see Team Charm take this win. I already talked a little bit about the Gray versus 52 Gambit sets, but this did go to 5 games, was pretty close. Like I said before, I actually would have predicted Gray if this match hadn't already happened. So it was a very good win for 52 Gambit. Sensei Axu here versus 7U 9I2. I believe this was a 3-game set as well. I think Axu played very cleanly, so not much else to say. Sifikon also taking this win. I do think that some people were kind of doubting Sifikon, but Sifikon has come to be a much better player throughout the course of this TLT. Not just like this TLT, but I guess like kind of throughout the progression since the last Tours Room event. So you'll kind of see here that a lot of like the common theme is that most of the higher seeds won. And kind of not really surprising, seed does matter a little bit, especially for the 4-1s and 5-0s, it does represent the fact that you are generally a better player. So, unsurprisingly, a lot of the time, the top higher seed did win. So APW also took a clean win over Angels and Airwaves. And I think APW has shown to be a tough opponent. I'll be facing them this round. As you can see, kind of like I said before, you'll be facing the opponent that's like directly around you. You can count it's like the pairs of 2. So this is like 1, 16, 8, 9, etc., etc. And then Star Real versus Alternif took it in a pretty clean set as well as Star Real. And I Know Life also very clean set versus Richard Pepper. I believe the I Know Life set was also 4 games. So, I think overall, not much to say about the recap. I think the predictions for this week were actually relatively on point. However, this one was also the week where there were a lot less close matchups. Like the ones that were most notable were myself versus MJ, Decim versus HYS, and Saba versus Blink Boy, as well as Arsenine versus Pokiar, which is actually going to game 5. And they didn't manage to finish the set last time, so it's going to get an extension. The last game is the last game is in PU, and I actually think Pokiard is probably slightly favored in PU versus Arsenine. However, it'll be pretty interesting to see this because I think PU is an extremely volatile tier this week. So, that's why I wanted to avoid it for this week. So we'll see how this goes, but I think this one will be really close. I'm more so surprised that Pokemon managed to bring it to a game 5, especially in a tier that can be extremely volatile, which even if you are like a PU main right now, I wouldn't even like say that you're significantly favored because a lot of the tier can be extremely volatile with so many new mons and like the meta not being solved at all. So this one is definitely going to be a tough week or a tough final game for Arsenine to kind of clean up if he wants to move on in the bracket. But let's go ahead and move on to, wait, is that the right? Yeah, okay. Let's go ahead and move on to round 2 and talk a little bit about all the matchups here for predictions. I think Kather versus Saba, I've been extremely impressed with Kather's play so far. Saba has also had a pretty good TLT so far. I think I've been impressed with a lot of his games. And the one advantage Saba has here is that I think Kather probably has limited to no experience in Ubers. I haven't seen him play a single game of Ubers so far. He might have played like 1 or 2, but none that are like super notable. And so Saba has been locking or has locked in the past Ubers. So and he's won a lot of those games where he did pick Ubers. So that kind of does give him a sort of advantage, kind of like if he can manage to capitalize on that, starting 1-0 in the set is pretty big. However, I still think Kather is just much better in a lot of these other tiers. So I think Kather is definitely going to take this one. And I don't think it's going to be that close. I think it's 60-40. I don't really see this as one of the highlight matchups of this round. Although Saba has performed really well so far, I do think Kather is much better. Between Arsenine and Pokiar, like I said before, I think Pokiar is slightly favored, but it's only very slightly, like 51-49 here in this game 5 in PU. And I think this is really just a toss-up between them. And then I think out of these 3, if Arsenine does advance, I think Arsenine will be favored versus Cheese, but I think Cheese is better than Pokiart. So we'll see how this final game goes. But depending on who advances, I think my prediction would change. Um, Luthier versus GXC is definitely the highlight matchup of this round. I think a lot of people have been hyping it up as Luthier versus GXC to be kind of like the top two players, myself included, as being the top two players of this tournament. I do think that between the two of them, GXC is more versatile. He's able to play a lot more tiers at a higher level. And I think the Luthier's advantage will be LC. LC, he is very much clearly better than GXC. GXC's advantage is Ubers. I think GXC is much better at Ubers than Luthier. So those two tiers are the ones that I kind of expect both players to lock if they want to capitalize on their advantage. And then I think they'll probably split games in the lower tiers where they're all a lot of them are very close in like UU, RU, NU, and I expect that it's probably going to come down to an OU matchup. Whoever wins the OU game, which I think both of them are very close in these tiers. I do think whoever wins the OU game is probably going to be the one who's overall favored. I do think GXC has a slight advantage in the lower tiers, but I don't think it's enough that he will actually go 2-0 in kind of the lower tiers. So if I if they do actually end up going with the spread of Ubers, LC, two of UU, RU, NU, and then OU as the last one, I would say Luthier is slightly favored. If GXC actually decides not to go Ubers, where he has the biggest advantage, I would actually favor Luthier slightly more. And if GXC wants to win this, I think he really needs to take 2-0 in those lower tiers, or manage to scrounge up like a really good OU matchup versus Luthier, which I think this one is going to be extremely close either way, though. I'm going to favor Luthier here, 55-45, which is actually a little bit higher than like just a straight up coin flip, 55-45 in Luthier's favor. So it's still extremely close, but I will give it to Luthier in a solid match. Decim versus Raj.shoot. I think Decim is still like a significant amount better than Raj here. Although I do think Raj did have a really good showing in round one and showed that after the week one loss to MJ that he's been able to bounce back very solidly. I do think Decim is still much better here, and I think Decim should be favored here about 60-40. Team Charm versus Mirage or 52 Gambit is probably one of the most interesting matchups of this round. I think Mirage showed a lot in the last round, being able to beat Gray in a very solid set that went to 5 games, but extremely competitive from both sides. While Team Charm still hasn't showed much, I would say LCAP might have been, if not the weakest player coming into top 32, at least one of the weakest players coming into top 32. And I would say that mostly because his team selection has been extremely predictable. So if you actually spend some time doing prep and whatnot, it wouldn't be surprising for basically anybody to be able to get good matchups against somebody like LCAP. So because of that, I still don't really know where Team Charm lies. Definitely, my opinion of them is higher than when the tournament started. To say that like at the beginning they were very much a wild card. I think at this point though, they've established to me that they can play well. Their team selection can be generally pretty good. Sometimes it's not the best, but most of the time it's pretty good. But we'll see exactly how it ends up in terms of this matchup. I will say that Team Charm should be slightly favored here. I think this one is also extremely close though, but I'll favor Team Charm here 55-45. Next up, Sensei Axu versus Sificon. It'll be a pretty interesting matchup. I think this is one of the least close matchups of this round, in my opinion. I think Sensei Axu is much better here. Having seen all of what Sensei Axu has been able to do in like the most recent tournaments, like lower tier tournaments and everything, I think overall Sensei Axu is just significantly better here, especially because a lot of their strengths as lower tier players do overlap to a certain degree. I do think Sensei Axu should be pretty significantly favored here, and I'll put this at like a 60-40. But like I would say it's maybe 65-35, honestly, to Axio. I will say though that Civicon has improved a large amount since basically the last few tours room tournaments. So do want to give him major props for that. Which improvement is basically I mean the most important thing I guess is improvement. It's not like how good you are now, but having an upward trajectory is always good. So although maybe this is where in top 16 where his run ends, I do think that despite that he's had a very good TLT showing so far. So we'll see how the matchup actually goes, but I do think this is probably the least close matchup of this round. I won't talk too much about my matchup versus APW, but it will be pretty interesting. We'll see what tiers we have to play. I'm hoping no Ubers or PU, but we'll see. Probably one of them is going to show up if I'm honest. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. But looking forward to more TLT sets. TLT has been pretty fun so far. So am looking forward to that 5-game set. Next up, and finally, Star Real versus I Know Life. I think Star Real is definitely going to be favored here, albeit I think a lot of people are probably sleeping a little bit more on I Know Life than like from the predictions I've seen. I think this will be closer than most people will think. I'll say that it's most likely going to be a like a 5-game set, or a 4 or 5 game set. I'll favor Star Real slightly here though, like 53-47, give or take. It's a little bit closer in my opinion than like the Luthier GXE set. Um, and we'll see exactly how well I Know Life will be able to match up against Star Real in a 5-game set where there's going to be a lot of prep and stuff for the set. So we'll see. I do think that this one is going to be close though. Definitely one to look out for. Although that being said, all these matchups in round the top 16 have been are ones that I'm like pretty looking forward to in terms of like matchups because I think all of them are relatively close. Even the ones that I would say are like the least close to this round, like for example, Sensei Axu versus Sifikon, are actually a lot closer than most of the matchups in last round. So I expect to see a lot of really competitive sets. I don't even think that like I would say that it's probably more likely that there won't be a single 3-game set in this round than there is going to be a three game set. I would say that it's more likely that there is not a single 3-game set. So like they all go to 4 or 5 games rather than all being like any of them being 3-game sets. To be honest, that's how close I think a lot of these matchups are. So really excited to see a lot of these this ramping up of the top 16 and then into top 8 and top 4 because all the matchups are going to get even more hype from here. Like after this round, it's going to be a lot more interesting matchups as well. So we'll see exactly how this goes, but you know, TLT really ramping up towards the end. When you get to those higher brackets, it's really going to be you know really good matchups. And I think TLT, like the format, albeit I had complaints about like, not having doubles OU in there and whatnot, but overall the format is really good at measuring like overall skill because like nobody is going to really be able to master all of these tiers. Even players like GXC who have um, topped a lot of these ladders and gone high on a lot of these ladders still don't reach the level of mastery. So it's more about like telling your overall playing ability and then using things like prep and week to week prep and team building to be able to really capitalize on some of those like potential weaknesses of your opponent and whatnot. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you didn't really enjoy, I'm not sure why you're still watching, to be honest. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you haven't checked it out already, please go check out my live match versus MJ. I put, I mean, it was a great matchup, so I do hope that a lot of people go watch that. But yeah, if you but otherwise, I'll just see you guys next week for more TLT recap and analysis, and as well as my live match versus APW. So yeah, see you then.